This is just out. Ukraine backs U.S. proposal for 30-day ceasefire with Russia. I'm going to read this to you if you don't mind. Mm-hmm. Ukraine, quote, expressed readiness to accept a U.S. proposal for an immediate 30-day ceasefire with Russia, the two countries said in a joint statement after a key meeting between U.S. and Ukrainian officials in Saudi Arabia. A ceasefire, if implemented, would be a major diplomatic breakthrough, This is Rubio, quote, the Secretary of State, the ball is now in their court. We hope the Russians will reciprocate. The U.S. agreed to lift its suspension on intelligence sharing with Ukraine and resume weapons shipments to the country, which were paused 10 days ago.
That makes no sense.
After weeks of pressuring the Ukrainians, the U.S. side signaled the pressure is now on Russia. Quote, if the Russians say no, we will know what the impediment is here, said Marco Rubio. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz said Ukraine not only accepted the U.S. proposal, but also presented its principles for a comprehensive peace deal, which includes security guarantees that it requires. Waltz also made clear to his team that all fighting needs to stop, not just air and missile strikes. Before you negotiate, you need to stop shooting at each other. That's what the president wanted to see, said Marco Rubio. The U.S. and Ukraine also agreed to conclude as soon as possible, quote, a comprehensive agreement for developing Ukraine's critical mineral resources. It wasn't clear if this meant that they would sign the deal that they'd been talking about. Steve Witkoff, President Trump's global envoy, is visiting Moscow on Thursday to meet with President Putin and discuss this. What's your response to that?
Well, I think there's some positive things in there, but we're missing the boat with the Russians again. We don't understand that if Ukraine is going to be neutral, why are we continuing to supply it with weapons at this stage? It's the Ukrainians that have to stop fighting. The Russians will stop when they see evidence that the Ukrainian force is defeated or quits. That hasn't happened yet, not with these attacks that just occurred over Moscow. So the Russians are asking the question, you're the ones keeping this monster alive. You created the monster is fatally wounded, and you keep putting it on life support. Do you really want an end to this war? I mean, imagine if we were dealing with a similar enemy in Mexico, and we found out that the Russians and the Chinese had provided vast quantities of equipment and assistance to the Mexicans who were trying to fight us and regain control of the Southwest. And we defeated them and driven them back out of the country, and they refused to stop. They continue to fight. We say, well, if you want this war to end, tell them to stop fighting, put down their weapons, and back out. And if they won't do that, then we have to do what? March into Mexico and crush them. I mean, this is the best analogy that I can come up with to make people understand what we're dealing with. So if you want normalized relations with Russia, go back to what we said at the beginning. End the military support for this heinous regime. This is guilty of all sorts of terrible war crimes anyway. All the things that Russia was accused of are things that the Ukrainians have done. So let's get out of this.
Well, they tried to, and they assassinated people. They tried to assassinate a couple people I know personally.
Yes.
Well, fact, not guessing. So, I consider that government, not the Ukrainians. I think the Ukrainians, as you said, are valiant and decent. And an awful lot of them are Christians. I know a lot of Ukrainians, and I couldn't think more highly of them. But I think that their government is totally evil.
Completely.
And so here's the thinking as far as I understand it. What do I know? But my strong sense is that the Trump White House wants an end to this war. The president campaigned on it. He thinks it's within his grasp. He also wants a more normalized relationship with Russia. He grieves over Russia's now permanent alliance with China. He sees how bad that is. It's not fixable. But bringing Russia a little bit closer back to the West is a good thing. I think I'm describing his thinking fairly. But for the purposes of making a deal, the thought is that you can't make a deal from a position of weakness. And so you have to show your teeth in order to get the other side to come to better terms. That's the idea behind throwing more weapons to Ukraine. Well, how do you assess that?
It's delusional. It's leading down the wrong path. If you want this to end, then stop it. You stop supplying it and get our people out of Ukraine. Make it very clear we're out of this. No more weapons, no more cash. We're finished.
So the people who built this country built it because they wanted freedom. One word, freedom. They wanted freedom from oppressors who forced them to buy overpriced tea. then blockaded them when they tried to dump it into the ocean. How'd that work out? Well, we built America in response. So it's time to throw your big overpriced wireless contract overboard too. A new Tea Party. You don't have to pay $100 a month just to use a phone. Most people don't use that much in services, but they pay it anyway. Our cell phone company, Pure Talk, says no to those prices. With a qualifying plan, you can choose an iPhone 14 or a Samsung Galaxy for nothing, zero. You get premium service on America's most dependable 5G network. It only takes a minute to switch. We highly recommend it. No hassle, no gimmicks, just honest-to-goodness wireless priced right. So you get your iPhone 14 or Samsung Galaxy for nothing, $0 with a qualifying plan. Go to puretalk.com/Tucker. Visit puretalk.com/Tucker for details. America's wireless company.
The British and the French can't come in and make up for that. Neither can the Germans. So that's all nonsense. You saw this Euro summit. They're going to assemble, almost $1 trillion to beef up defense in these countries. Good luck. I don't see that occurring in Europe at all, because the average Europeans are saying, for what? They look at what's happening and they no longer believe this myth. The Russians are coming. The Russians are coming. The Russians are coming. They're going to be on I-95 in northern Jersey tomorrow night. Come on, the Russians are coming.
We have to kill them here. You hear Republicans say this all the time.
Crap.
Republican senators, really the worst group in the country, in my opinion, short of Antifa. But, it's a really good deal for us because we're killing all these European Christians there, so we don't have to kill them here.
Yeah.
And they say that out loud.
Well, they said that Lyndon Johnson was like, well, if we don't kill them here now in Vietnam, we're going to be fighting them in Los Angeles. So we got to get them now. Come on, that was ridiculous. I heard General Abizaid make the same stupid statement in 2004. Well, we have to kill these Islamist terrorists here in Iraq, or we'll be fighting them in our own country. It's all crap. It's the same old set of lies. It's sort of like the perpetual neocon narrative. It's 1936. We all have to band together. There's another Hitlerite on the horizon. This is a standard sort of gruel that is pitched to the American people over and over and over again in the Anglosphere in general, whether it's Great Britain, United States, or Australia. It's all nonsense. We got to get past this and once and for all bury it. If we really want this to stop, this is not about winning or losing. I think that's another problem. We got to make sure this is a win for the president. A win for the president is an end to this war, period. Number two, what are our interests in Ukraine? Tell me what they are. What are the strategic interests that justify intervention in that country? Time's up. There are none. We've never had any interest in Ukraine whatsoever. We wish them well. We want them to be happy and prosperous. But we have never had any interest in defending them against anybody under any circumstances. We've got to get back to what's rational, not what's emotional. The president just needs to look at this and say, we need to stop this. And he can be a world historical figure if he ends the carnage in Ukraine by simply saying, that's it, we're out. And then turns around to the Middle East and say, stop now. No more mass murder and expulsion of human beings from Gaza or the West Bank or anywhere else. If he's willing to do those things, he's a world historical figure. That's a dramatic sea change in the history, I would say, of the West and probably of the world. But instead what we get is, we can't do that, we'll look weak. It's sort of the argument that Kissinger made to Nixon. Well, we can't just leave Vietnam. Well, that's exactly what the hell we did, right? We left.
Yeah.
So, no, we got to go into Cambodia to show them that we're strong. How many people did we lose in Cambodia needlessly?
Yeah.
It's the same mentality. Just be honest. This is over. And then tell the Europeans, these are people that we're supposedly allied with, that they need to sit down at the table with Moscow. And we're happy to be there. We'll sponsor it. We'll set them up.
But they've gone so far in the other direction. Like in the UK right now, even Nigel Farage, head of the Reform Party, which I think is the biggest party, doesn't have power, but it's by registration the biggest party in Britain, and it's the counterbalance both to the crazed Labourites and the pathetic castrated Tories. They won't say that we should end the war in Ukraine. Even they won't. I mean, it's like there's no party that I'm aware of in all of Europe with power that will say that.
Well, you said with power. There are plenty of parties out there advocating.
There are.
AfD, the Alternative für Deutschland, is not a far-right party. I hear that all the time. Anything that challenges the status quo is also far-right.
Anything Applebaum doesn't want.
It's
right?
a bunch of nonsense. Yeah, they want an end to this. There's no question about it.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. We hope you'll subscribe to it. And by the way, you can hit the little bell on there and get notifications every time we produce a video. We hope you'll do that also.